Welcome, guys, back to the Grateful Living Podcast. Today I'm thankful to have Chris Scholar with me. Chris is an artist, director, and songwriter. As an artist, his latest project is for Lovers Mixtape, which came out in August of 2021. As a director, he produces music videos through his production company, By the BOOC. He's produced videos for Nelly, Pink Sweats, Wiz Khalifa, August Alsina, and many more. As a singer and songwriter, he's previously wrote for artists like Chris Brown, Two Chainz, and Ariana Grande. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh man, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So, for everyone that doesn't know you as well, take us back to the beginning, where you grew up, your family situation, what type of kid you were, things like that.
Got you. Well, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. Born and raised in Virginia, and I got an older brother who pretty much, he's 3 years older than me, that I was looking up to my whole life. He was the first to sing, the first to dance, pretty much gave me inspiration. And, being the little brother, always wanting to be, into the same type of things. That's where I got my start, and at the same time always had a competitive nature because I was a young kid. I was in sports all the time, so whatever I put my mind to, I took very seriously. And I started off singing in the church, man, like 8 years old, running up and down the church aisle, singing, doing all the solos in my school. And I always just had a natural gift for singing. My pops was a choir director for a little bit when I was young. And a quick funny story: when I was young, actually, when the choir when he was directing one of our big shows at church, this kid named Johnny had a solo, and I had a solo. And the kid Johnny comes up, and it's his time to go, and he freezes like during church, so he just doesn't sing his part. So I just grabbed him. I pushed him out the way. I grabbed a mic and sing his solo and my solo. So I think from there it was like kind of destiny. My pops, everybody's always, known I've been a performer from a young age. I always like to be on stage. I feel like that's home to me. After that, I ended up in high school. I finally started recording my first bit of records, and I actually. One of my friends, good friend of mine, his name is Lil Xan. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
He's a super dope artist, but me and him kind of started our musical journey together. Like he was the second person I ever like heard myself on the mic with, because he had the Fruity Loops and he had the computer laptop. He used to bust it open, and I had my cornrows. I was an Allen Iverson fan back in the day. Virginia, 2 Up 2 Down. So. Always rock the Rose. Me and him got our first like mixtaping when we were like, I was like 14 years old. And after that, man, I just kept pushing. I was in high school. I played sports. I was varsity basketball, soccer, all that good stuff. But I ended up quitting my basketball team because I had an opportunity with the music. Like when I was about 16, one of these songs, I made like a dance record. Kind of like a snap your fingers type of joint, like an instructional dance video. And the song actually ended up getting, I guess you could call it going viral back then. It got noticed. This was on MySpace.
Yep.
And song that got picked up on MySpace, and the producer actually found me. The original way I found the beat, it was a contest. Jazzy Faye and this other producer named Teddy Bishop pretty much had this contest where like, yo, you could make a song, get a record deal or whatever, and you had to sign up on the website. But I ended up taking my microphone, because we didn't have the bread to like sign up for the contest. We took our microphone and recorded the beat through the speakers. So basically took it off the internet, ripped it, made a whole song, started popping in my school. Next thing you know, I get a MySpace message like, hey, you guys stole this song, but the producer wants to meet you. And that was my first introduction, like early on. I ended up going to Atlanta and recording a couple records down there with Teddy Bishop, who was like a heavy producer with Babyface at the time. He had did a lot of work for Babyface, Mariah Carey.
Yep.
So that was the first little break into it. And I think what's kept me going through this whole journey is just every time I just move in one direction, another opportunity will pop up and lets me know, okay, you're on the right path. So that was the first step. Then maybe like a couple years later, I ended up. I was following Jermaine Dupri on YouTube. He had a series called Living the Life, and basically, all the people who paid attention to him were called lifers. We were like really in tune to everything he had going on a day-to-day basis, and he was real responsive to his fans through Twitter, through YouTube. And one day I saw that he put up a video. It was like late at like 12 o'clock at night, midnight, and it had 0 views on YouTube. I was like, oh snap, he must have just uploaded this. And he had this thing called response videos. So pretty much, if you made a video that was responding to whatever happened in that previous episode, he would repost you on Twitter or answer your question. So I was like, okay, he pays attention to his following. So I stayed up that night and I was like, let me make a response video to him, but make it creative where he can see, my talent. And I ended up asking him a question because his whole episode was about like him recording in the studio and certain things he does during production. So I had my own little studio in my basement, and I was explaining my dilemma because we had built a little booth, and my dilemma was I didn't have an engineer, so I would have to like press the play button and run in the booth and try to like do my takes.
Yeah.
I just was kind of like presenting to him the struggle of being independent and just doing that, but at the same time showcasing my skill set. And he was like, I went to sleep, put the video up, didn't think nothing of it. Woke up the next day, was mad views on YouTube, like way more than I'd ever seen before. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? So I go to Twitter. And Jermaine Dupri was in my Twitter, and he had posted me on his blog. Before he had a website that he ended up coming out with. But before the website, he just had a personal blog that used to get a lot of hits, a lot of attention. So he posted me, and I saw it on Twitter. I was like, oh snap, man! And he's like, this is how you get the attention of a music executive, whatever. And he put a little article up. And from there, that was kind of the next spark that just had me like, okay, man, like wow, if I got people like Jermaine Dupri recognizing what I do, then this is definitely a sure go. So continued working. Maybe like a year later, he ended up taking me to see L.A. Reid. And this was during, I was in college, so this was during the finals of my college. And I couldn't take the exam because I had this opportunity. So I told my professor, I'm like, yo, I got a chance to go, meet L.A. Reid and Jermaine Dupri. And she was like, yeah, that's cool, but you can't do your finals. Like, you can't make them up or do them early. You have to be here on the day of the finals.
Yep.
So I ended up dropping out of school, man, took the opportunity. And that just kind of broke me into the game. And from there, I just kept maneuvering, ended up moving to Atlanta, working with some producers, and then came to Los Angeles, man. And in Los Angeles, we're here now where everything has really manifested and the career has really started blossoming just because of the opportunity, man, like the network. I feel like coming from Virginia, a small town, all the way to L.A., it's like the varsity league out here. So you get introduced to a lot of different players, you meet a lot of different creatives, and you're able to expand. And that's where we're at now with it. Yeah.
So, take me back to 14 when you first started playing around with music. What was the dream back then? Was it to be a famous star? I think so many of us have dreams, right? But we have insecurities too,
Right.
We fear the judgment of others, and we fear, what the reaction's going to be. Oh, Chris thinks he's the next, best thing, and people, trying to clown you and stuff like that.
Right.
Do you remember what you were thinking, like 14, 16, 18 years old?
For sure, man. I mean, coming from Virginia, like, always been majorly influenced by, like, the Virginia artists like Chris Brown, like Trey Songz. And, I used to think back in the day, I just would see that and, like, man, I sing, I dance, I'm going to be the next Chris Brown, the next Trey Songz. But I think as I developed in my artistry and my skill set, I started finding more of a purpose behind what I do, especially in these later years. Like, like using my art to inspire and to help others who don't really necessarily have the resources, and you know, show them that even with whatever you have, you can create something, and then you can get to the next as long as you keep putting into yourself. And yeah, in the beginning, it was just fun, man. Like, I just love to dance. Like I said, my brother was a big inspiration, and I was really more so heavy on the sports. I could just really sing, and always was at it. And then once I heard myself on a CD, I was like, oh snap! And the grind started immediately from there. We ended up making a mixtape. We were selling them in barbershops. I was taking the China bus up to New York City. And we would sing in delis and try to get our mixtapes off in the little delis in New York. And I stayed on the bus, man. I don't take the bus no more like I used to, but I stayed on the Greyhounds, all that. It was like a real grind, just up and down the East Coast. Whenever I had an opportunity to perform, I would. Like, it was fun, and it still is fun for me. I just think the purpose has changed, and instead of just wanting to be the next big star, it's like, how many people can you really affect through your art? And yeah, man, that's where we at now, especially with the building of the book brand.
I think that the first couple mixtapes, was it personal use only, and who was Chris Scholar?
Yeah.
I mean, can you talk to us about, you know, as you look back on that, you know, for an artist trying to come out with maybe their first project, you know, any pieces of advice that you know, would give them, just learning from your experience coming out with those projects?
Yeah, I think it's a maturation process, man. You got to be patient with yourself, and you got to be in the moment. Like, I feel like every tape is like a moment. It's a moment in your life, and music kind of follows your life. So wherever you're at the time, you should get that stuff out, be proud of it, and let it go, and let people see it. I think for me, I've actually held a lot of music in. I have so many records that nobody's ever heard. Just because as an artist, sometimes you can feel insecure at times, and you might not know your direction. But I think when I had time to just really like sit down and think for myself, because early on, I had a lot of different influences, a lot of people who influenced my music, from writers to friends to producers. And then especially when you're young and your mind's still racing, you don't really know exactly how you want to be categorized. You just want to do the music. But then as you grow, you start coming into yourself, like, nah, man, this is more my lane. This is what I feel good at. This is the range I like. And I feel like with repetition, you find those gems in you, and then you just you know, accent that. And it's also about working with people that you genuinely have a connection with. With music, it's all a feeling. So whatever you do, whatever person you connect with, man, as long as it's genuine and it's real, that intention it'll show through the music. So I had to just kind of like get comfortable with who I was. And yeah, I feel like my first couple songs where I really was like, oh man, I'm in my bag, was like Move to LA, Understandings, really like after those, a little bit after those mixtapes, or in between those, where that's when I moved. I actually did move to LA, and I was sitting in the crib in this little back pool house, and I was there all the time by myself, really like just out here in LA, dolly, and I had my mic, and that was a cool place for me, just to, you know, be in my own box and really just like, okay, it's nobody else telling you how to move, how to think, how to do anything. You just come off the top. But I had gained so much influence from these people, because as an artist, nothing's new under the sun. You take bits and pieces from everybody that you're inspired by, and that's what makes, you know, you put those in your box, and that's what makes you. So I think the greatest part of it all, man, is appreciating the journey, and yeah, continuing to push. And when it's right, it's gonna be right. The time is, you know, it's God's timing.
Yes, sir. I'm curious, you know, obviously now you're got your own production company, but for the emerging artist who's broke, you know, do you have any pieces of advice on coming out with like your first music video?
Yeah, for me, I didn't have the budgets to shoot any of the type of videos I really wanted, but I did have access to a camera, and we do have access to YouTube. And I think you just got to use your imagination in those spaces. Like, I used to watch movies, and I see people, like, if you look at a lot of my videos now, I use flying and floating and all these different cool surreal imagery, but I get that from movies I watch. And then I used to think like, man, how can I trick the camera to pull off this effect, even if I don't have the budget? And I think that's what ends up making you great, man, is finding those little things. If you want something bad enough, you're going to go get it. You're going to go make it happen. So when you're in those times is when the creativity, it says necessity is the key to invention. So when you need something, but you don't have access to it, you're going to find out how to create it. And I feel like that's the space for when you're an artist first coming out and you don't have all the resources, like embrace that and just get to wherever it is you're trying to go.
You talked about, you were at VCU and the opportunity came, and you ultimately decided to drop out. I'm curious, was that a tough decision, where parents or brothers saying, don't do it, don't rush? I mean, how was that a quick decision for you, or, how was that?
Well, of course, your parents always want you to go. They wanted you to go to school. They wanted me to finish school. But at the same time, I think they saw the light at the end of the tunnel. They saw the opportunity because of the type of people that were reaching out and the type of attention that was coming in different ways was enough to kind of like support, like, okay, man, I should support my son in this move, in this endeavor. So it definitely was a big decision, but I had the support of my family, so that definitely helped. And from there, that just gave me fuel to just keep going. When I moved to Atlanta, I still wasn't in the best positions after that decision. I was sleeping on the couch in Atlanta, and really grinding for a couple of years out there. But at the same time, I was motivated, and we kept seeing like that next step, like, okay, he's getting closer. And as long as you see progression, man, in anything you do, even if it's the smallest amount, you got to look at that. You got to maximize that in your mind, and and then keep striving to continue that.
Obviously later as you came up with By the BOOC as the production company, and I think it's how your primary source of income. But when you first moved out to LA, financially, how were you doing it?
Oh, so when I first moved out to LA, I was actually in a production situation. I was signed to a songwriter by the name of Harold Lilly, and he's from my hometown. He's from Richmond, Virginia as well. And he had wrote a lot of songs for Beyonce, for Alicia Keys, a lot of great artists. So I learned so much from him, and I had a cool little core base out here to get me acclimated to the city. And I learned a lot during those years, learned a lot more about the business. LA is a bigger city, so I didn't venture off too much. We were in a tight-knit circle, and we really just focused on making music and becoming better. And then after that situation where I was out here on my own, I pretty much just was. I had a few connections. I had made a few moves around the city, and the camera is really what saved me at that point, because just being able to provide a service for others in the business behind the lens, I really took heed to that and really started putting energy into that, and that's what sustained me. Like for that time, I was able to get to it, like hustling, doing videos for independent artists to any and everything, shooting little promos, and that's what kept money in my pocket. That's what paid rent. I was able to keep up the little $700 rent at the pool house, and from there it was just grinding. And in between those times, I continued to maintain, like, okay, Chris, you're an artist. I was making music, and eventually, yeah, it turned into the production company from there, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, how did you get yourself like smart on video production, directing? Is that just trial and error, and like you just get better over time, or studying YouTube videos, or?
Yeah, really that started in I always fool with the camera. Even in high school, I had access to a little camera, and started on Windows Movie Maker just to make little things back in the day. But it got serious more so when I started filming party videos. I was just basically in the club. I had my camera, and my brother had crossed at school, so I did a probate video for him. Like when he was like he was stepping, he came out as a Q. In his video, I wanted to make it dope, so I took my time on it, and then I put it out. And a lot of the kids in the colleges were like, "Yo, man, who did your video?" The party promoters asking, everybody's like, "Yo, who did this video?" And I ended up getting paid for like a few party videos, and from there, that's what kind of like, because I was getting money for it, I was just, of course, more interested in the process behind it. And me being a creative, it got kind of boring after a while, because you're doing the same thing. You're filming. Okay, you go to the party, you see people dancing, turning up, and that's about it. So that's when I got into the effects side of things, like on the visuals. I just used to just add little textures here and there, just to make it more appealing to me, keep me interested. And that's what I think really where I got good, and I just got more curious and was searching on YouTube whenever I wanted to try something new, and really taught myself everything from ground up.
So that the music video stuff was probably like 2016, 2017 time period. And then, 2021, you're working with some A-list, you know, musicians, Nelly, Florida Georgia Line. Talk to us about that progression, over those 4 to 5 years, and, how you built up your reputation, where these artists trust you, and you built a company and videographers and all that.
Right. Okay. So Move to LA was one of the first videos I did in Los Angeles that really caught wave in the music business, where people were like, "Oh snap! Like, who did this video? Who's this kid?" And everybody was really just shocked that, yeah, I did my own video. And from there, I ended up doing a couple videos for these artists that were close to me and a part of the same production company. They were signed to Motown, so I did some videos for them. And once those videos got shopped around, it was like double time. Now everybody's like, "Oh snap, man, this kid." That's when I started getting the name as a director. Like, "Yo, who is this?" And just to go back, like when I first moved to LA and started like just being around sets and being around other artists and seeing the process, I really got to understand what it was to be a production company, not just a director. Like I realized that, oh wow, there's multiple different people who play positions in this field. Like you got the editors, the director of photographies, and all these different titles within the film. Because in school, I didn't go to school for film. I just went to school for mass comm. I was trying to get just to get a degree. It wasn't really, it wasn't really like mass comm was the closest thing to film, because I didn't really get into film school. And so, yeah, being in the field and just watching people, I start to understand the mechanics of how it worked behind the scenes. So after doing my videos, and when I first started shooting videos for other people, there was a DP that I was really close with out here who kind of gave me insight on treatments, video treatments. Because I was inquiring, like, "Yo, man, how do you even like shop ideas to get booked for a video as a director?" And he was like, "Man, it's this thing called a treatment." I was like, "What's that?" He shows me what a treatment is, and I'm like, "Oh snap, this is just like a PDF with basically your synopsis of what you think the video should feel like." And once I learned that, man, I just took those tools and put them into action. So I started hiring people out I started meeting people actually who were specialists in those fields. And I'm like, "Oh, you're a director of photography, so you really understand what the image is supposed to look like." And I started realizing I don't have to do everything on my own. And I think that was one of the biggest keys to really starting to make this thing bigger than just myself, is understanding like, okay, it's a lot of different working components, and it's good to have a team. So from there, yeah, I did those couple videos. Name just started getting spread, and it's just really word of mouth. Like people just were like, "Yo, man, you heard about this? You heard about this?" Opportunity after opportunity, and I was nailing them. Like I was coming through, I was doing my job, and then eventually my wife moved out here. She's from Richmond, Virginia, and she has a real creative mind. Always was really really best dressed. You know, when I met her, she was best dressed. She had an eye for aesthetics and fashion and things that look good. And then just me understanding how film works. I'm like, wow, you can do this, you know. And she just really kind of took over when she came out here, as far as like helping run the productions as a producer, finding the talent, helping find the location so that aesthetic looked good. And then collectively we built the brand, which is By the BOOC. And instead of, at first it was called Scholastic Vision because my name was Chris Scholar. I don't know. I was just trying to attach different I don't know, words together and build something, but it wasn't sticking. But when we created By the BOOC, it was more of a thing like, okay, we tell stories, man. We tell other people's stories and we tell our stories, and we think it's important. And we think that basically the whole idea of By the BOOC is to make sure that we get the right stories out, and stories that might be untold and unheard, you know, and at a high level, so people can enjoy it and be like, oh wow. And that's where it came from. And then I started pretty much moving around the city, ended up getting videos with Tank. I was around a lot of the young kids, like when Trippie Redd and 6ix9ine first came out. I used to be in a studio called Hitway in Hollywood, and I was there like every day, just because it was a young energy. And the owner of the studio, he the way he met me, he gave me free studio time. That was a way he was like, yo man, I see you're dope, man. I see you're an artist. Like you can record here free whenever. So that I was always there. And actually at that same time, he was doing the same thing with Trippie Redd, with 6ix9ine. So all these types of people are coming into this building, and I got to see their glow up, see their transformation, and see all these things happening around me. And I think that's just the spirit of LA, because it's, you know, everything's right here. You know, you can step out your door and you meet one person and your life can, you know, totally flip. I tell people out here in Los Angeles, just every year is different for me. Like you run into somebody else and now you're like, oh snap, LA feels like a whole different vibe than it did 2 years. It just depends on where you're at. And that's the great thing about it, because it's constantly changing, constantly moving. So yeah, man, we developed, that's how it really progressed. And then just me wanting to get better and realizing my competition, realizing where I was at, being ready for the opportunity, prepared. And I'm not gonna lie, like the first really big video I got, it was French Montana, DJ Spin King, Nico and Vinz. They all had a song together, and this was really like my first production where I had to deal with A-list celebrities, and I was really just kind of like thrown in the fire. But it was a learning experience at that point, and I made a few mistakes, but from there I was like, okay, I made it through. The video came out, which is always a good sign. At least if you can get to the finish line where it comes out, you're like, all right, I did it. I did at least that. And yeah, from there it just kept going. And I was like, okay, I can handle anything.
Now, like, how is that process, like, you know, with French Montana or whoever, like, do you have to pitch them the idea of like how you're gonna do it, or like, and then how does that, like, or are you reaching out to them, or you know, how's this work?
I think for all the videos, it comes different. Like some come from personal interaction, like knowing the artist like directly, but then like also meeting A&Rs, managers, all these type of people who kind of just dot connectors who put the plays together. And for my first couple of visuals, I had to submit. It was really in competition. You had to submit your idea, and then they were like, "Oh, we like this." And my ideas were cutting through. So I had personal relationships with like management and things like that. And they would ask me like, yo, you got anything for this? I'd send it in. And the next thing you know, people are like, oh yeah, we want you to do it. I'm like, oh snap, for real? Like,
Yeah.
and then it went from there. And I had never even really formalized my business at that point. It was just getting the jobs done. And now though that I've grown and structured everything, it's become more of a business where I can start helping people. And yeah, it takes time though, man. You got to go through a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. I'm curious, what would you what advice would you have given yourself now looking back on, the operations of running a production company?
Man, if I look back now, I think it's just like structure, having a little more. I would have a little more structure, and I would have paid attention to the branding even earlier. Like I realized how big that is now. Outside of just doing great work, is like what's attached to it and what the meaning is behind it, and like putting that intention into it is what really helps it blossom into something further. Because it, like, you could burn out if you just keep doing things over and over again, and sometimes it becomes where you just need the money, and you're like, man, I'm gonna just do this job, just do this video, just do that video. And eventually I had to come to terms like, yo, okay, if you want this thing to move forward in a certain direction, you actually have to tangibly outline a goal and try to reach that goal. I was just going with the flow, in LA, just anything that come, I'm like, oh yeah, let's get it. But then I do, like, you can't burn out like that. So I'm glad, my wife came out here. She was able to help, like, yo, let's structure this thing a little differently. And then now it actually created space for me as an artist to really start diving back into my artistry, because that was my dilemma during that time period, because I was making money off the film and some of those jobs were coming so frequently. It's like, then my music, I'll put music out and people love the music, but then I'll go ghost for a while. And it was a consistency missing during that time period. So now I'm really developing it now and like making sure, like, okay, as an artist, you got to do X, Y, and Z. As a production company, you got to do X, Y, and Z, separating these different hats.
Yeah, scheduling time.
Yeah.
You talked about it a little bit, but and congratulations to both of you getting married this year. But what is that like? Working with a significant other. Obviously you have a personal relationship, but
Right.
I don't know if the visions ever butt heads, and you're like, nah, the artist should do this, or I don't know if that ever happens, but like, how do you maintain professionalness there, but like not be sleeping on the couch at night?
Right. I got you. I think, man, honestly, to be total honest, like you go in and out, and we've had to develop better lines of communication from work and personal, because sometimes it can spill into each other when like, man, I need this or whatever. And I'm a hard coach, because I'm in here and I was doing everything, by myself for the longest. And then I'm very like I be critiquing a lot, and I had to figure out better ways of communicating. I think that's a key, is communication. And yeah, man, it's an up and down. It's a roller coaster though. Sometimes it's just like, and you have ideas, but I think it's a beautiful thing, because you guys can be vulnerable with each other, and you can go all the way there, and you can bring it back down. And I guess in other relationships, that might not necessarily be the key. Like sometimes you guys could go at it and it could ruin the whole thing, and people just, but we're always able to mesh at the end of the day. So I think it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, sometimes it gets like, it is what it is.
Yeah. Hey, talk to me about creativity, man. I was looking at the Hardly Ever Miss video, and then there's a transition from like the subway to by the
Yeah.
gas station, and I'm like, yo, that was so creative. Like, do you
Right.
just spend like an hour just thinking of brainstorming all the ideas in the world, or like how do you come up with some of the creative ideas that you do?
Well, Hardly Ever Missed, the way that came about, I actually had shot a video in New York like 2 years prior. And I had all this footage from New York to a whole nother song. And I'm like, damn, man, this is cool footage because it showcased, like, if you see in the video, it's a lot of footage in New York where I'm with my friends, like just moving around, maneuvering. And that was just a cool time. And I feel like it's important, especially in this time as an artist, to capture reality. But at the same time, what mine is like a mix of reality and surrealism. Like I like to put that superhero element inside of like your everyday. So the New York video, all that footage was just real everyday stuff, like me just hanging with my homies. And then Hardly Ever Missed, I had met my DP and I had started learning more about film during that time. And I'm like, man, I want to shoot something that looks a little more cinematic. So we just drove out to the desert and he shot a couple shots. And then it wasn't enough for me to finish the Hardly Ever Missed video. So I'm like, dang, I need to add more to it. So I went back to that old footage and I'm like, how can I connect these two stories? Maybe it's like I took a rocket from New York to the desert or something. And that's kind of where the ideas kind of came from. So I'm like, once I seen us riding in the car on the top of the roof, I'm like, let me add some fire behind it and speed us up. Looks like we're shooting off. And then it goes into the rocket and I land in this gas station, this desolate area. And I really tried to just put different elements together and create my own story. And that goes back to like early in conversation about necessity is the key to invention. You know, I know I needed more shots. I didn't have time to get extra stuff, but I was just like, man, I do have things here. How can I take what I have and make something great? And that's what came. And really just staring at the screen over and over again to see like, oh man, sometimes I just sit there and look at the screen for 30 minutes, the same clip over and over again. And then I start seeing things in my head. I'm like, oh, that would be cool. And I try it.
Yeah. Tell us, a little bit more about, what the future of By the Book looks like and, um, you know, what you hope for there.
Now, By the Book, man, it's endless. It's endless possibility. That's why I'm so excited about it. And we're actually doing our first show in December, December 21st at Songbird in Washington, D.C. So it's a By the Book show. I'm headlining with my little bro, Drew Ashby. But basically, yeah, By the Book, we want to start by, we have this book original platform right now where we're really collaborating with artists that we really just genuinely like. Music that I like, because a lot of times, like I said in the past, we do videos just to get the money. So Book Originals is like, it's real intentional about the artists we're working with and what we're trying to create and just elevating, new artists, really like myself, who might not necessarily have those budgets. Like I didn't have the budgets back in the day, but if we like it, we connect and it's a story there, we want to tell it. So that's what the Book Originals vibe is. It started there. It's morphed into now. We have a docu kind of series called Chapters coming out, which is also a part of Book Originals. Where the first one is about this kid from Baltimore. His name's Pug, and he's a bike rider. When he was a young kid, like he was one of the best in the city of Baltimore. He's like insanely dope. So we just covered his first ride. He was locked up for a little bit. So we just covered his first ride in Charlotte and telling that story. And it's really, it's about telling stories. And from there, we want to throw shows. We want to do festivals like By the Book. So all these artists that we get to work with and all these brands that we help build, we want to be able to throw big shows. So people come out, it's like festival vibes. We want to do that. Movies. I'm a part of my first movie right now, editing my first feature film.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. That came to me through one of my friends, which was super dope, because I always talked about wanting to do movies, but it's dope to be a part of the process first in one way, before you actually end up going into the whole thing like blindly. And this is really, really cool for me. So I should be finished with this edit by the end of December. Hopefully, I don't know when the movie's projected to come out, but excited about that. and yeah, man, the company, it's endless possibilities, man. We just want to, we want to blow it up as big as possible. I don't know what the next is, but we're going to
Yeah,
start with these shows.
that's awesome. And so, you know, obviously, you know, you're running a production company and you come out with, you know, For Lovers Mixtape. You know, talk to us about that and, you know, collaborating with Drew Ashby and, you know, releasing that this year.
So For Lovers Mixtape was actually it was a blessing for me because creatively I had just been putting out a lot of singles, and before I released my album, this company from London had reached out to me. They're like, "Yo, man, we like your music. They heard Jumpin', which is one of my last singles that I released before the tape, and they were like, we heard your song, we love it. We have this opportunity for you to do some covers." And you'll be able to put them on streaming platforms. And I had never heard of that before. Like, of course, people have covers on streaming, but that never had really been in my line of sight. And when they sent it, I was like, oh, wow, this sounds like a cool opportunity. And then at the same time, I've always, like, I grew up off mixtapes. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just do, they wanted me to do just 5 songs, just any random songs. I was like, let me make this a whole project. And then Drew Ashby is my brother-in-law. I've known him since he was like real little, man, and seen him grow up. He's a talented jazz musician, man. Like, played with Quincy Jones, all types of people, man. Like, they've seen this kid. So he has watched my progression as an artist and always been inquisitive, and really in his pursuit to become a producer and really, like, outside of the jazz world, just start, you know, tapping into that. I always was like, man, yeah, do your thing, like, keep going. And he started sending me beats, and I'm like, wow, your beats getting crazy. Like, so when this opportunity came and they were like, yeah, you have to remake the music or whatever, I was like, Drew, let's just collab on this project. You make all the beats. And he remade everything from scratch. We went in, we added some different vocals in the song to give it our own feel. And we wanted to just, like, really take this on, like, almost like it's our first body of work, because he doesn't have a full album out and I don't have a full album out. So it's like, collectively, this was an experience for us, something that we could try. We could start from top to bottom, finish it, roll it out. We shot music videos. All That Matters came out. We got Essence coming out soon. And then we're doing the tour. Like, so we just was like, let's just treat this like a whole body of work. And it's like a trial run kind of in a sense. And I think it's become bigger than that now, because people are really gravitating to the music. And hopefully it leads to a second For Lovers tape that might be all original. Who knows?
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's where it started. And then we built it, man. I linked with my engineer out here named Dom. And that was another key component, because when you look at, like, Drake and all these people, and me, after being in the room with Hitmaker and learning about songwriting, and it's the same thing about a team. Like, you need those different components and those different specialists. So once I found Dom, and us just meshing together, just being in the room, like, really not a lot of other outside influences, we could just go in every day, bounce ideas off of each other, creates a good work environment, and we made a dope tape.
Yeah,
that's how it came about.
That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about the tour?
Yeah, so the tour, man, we just put it together. We locked in DC. We have a show in LA coming in February 14th, like around Valentine's Day. That's not the exact date, but around Valentine's Day. We're gonna hit New York, and it's really like a small tour where we're introducing ourselves as artists through this tape, but also giving people a taste of what's to come, and some of my old music. So fans will get some of Chris Scholar, they'll get some of Drew Ashby, because he has a tape coming out, and his is more like just instrumentals. He's starting to add vocals too. I don't know when it's finished, he might have vocals all over it. But right now, his first visual we did for him, which was the first book original, was called Her. So he released that single. He'll be performing those. I'll be performing a lot of stuff from Move to LA, all that good stuff. But it's my first headlining show, and the first show where we really can just do everything the way we want to do it, from the lighting to the screens. Like, I feel like I've always been a visual person, you know, because I'm a director. So I'm looking forward to for people to see that in the show, like visually, they're like, oh snap, this is really dope for an intimate vibe. It's lit.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the personal life, man. You know, you and your wife are young.
Yeah,
A lot of people out here are having problems, you know,
yeah.
with the single life. You know, tell us how you did it. What
Right.
advice do you have to the single guys out there? You know, how did you mold that relationship? I'm sure there was distance at points, you know, when you were in
Right.
LA.
Right. Yeah, there was distance actually a couple times when I moved to Atlanta. And I think like my biggest thing when we first got together is just empowering each other's dreams and each other's creativity. Because I knew, you know, with this music and what I was pursuing, I was always going to pursue that dream. And she, like I noticed early on she was really into fashion and into that side of things, and I always just wanted to see that like as like, yo man, go that way. And I think we just kind of inspired each other, just hitting those milestones, and that's what kept us going. And even when we're long distance, like we made sure we made time. You know, I took the bus, she took the flights, you know, and at times, you know, it gets hard, but at the same time, when you meet somebody and your mindset is the same, like you're driven to reach the same things. Um, as long as you keep that, you know, keep that in the front and remain true and honest, man, y'all can figure it out and work through anything. So I think that's like, long story short, how we got here. And yeah, I was in Atlanta first, you know, struggling, did that whole little struggle life. And we figured it out, man. I think every year things change. Every year things change, dynamics change. It's different issues, from finances at sometimes to any and everything. But you just got to continue to work for it. I think a lot of days now, because of social media and everything's so quick, people give up quick. As fast as they get into something, they give up as quick as that. And I think like it's really about just holding on to things. Everything's not going to be perfect all the time, but you got to be willing to fight for something, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Chris, we've talked about a good amount, you know, your move to LA, your music, your production company, a little bit about the personal. Is there anything else on your mind or something you wish people asked you about?
Uh Man, nah. Like I just want everybody like to make sure they recognize the superhero inside themselves, man, and just stick to it. Like stick to whatever it is you you put your mind to. And like, people, it's a cliche statement when people say, man, you could do whatever you think. But the more I like put something in the air and really move towards it, it manifests into that. And like, even when it doesn't seem like that's what it's supposed to be, like eventually you'll get there. You just got to make those strides. You can't be scared, man. Got to take risk.
Yep.
That's what we're doing now, man. We're taking risk. Even this show for us, it's like the first time we jump out of the gym is strictly independent. Like we don't have any help from any outside sources. So the unknown is always scary, but at the same time, I want to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And no better way to do it than build it yourself and work for
Facts.
yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bet on yourself, man. That's the key.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I just want to acknowledge you. Well, before I do that, do you want to tell people how can they support you? What's the best way to do that?
Oh man, follow me on Instagram, which is at Chris Scholar, on YouTube, on Twitter. It's all at Chris Scholar. Just check in with me. I got merch coming, my first batch of merch on the way. So
Yeah.
if y'all like some dope fire clothes, man, please click on the By the BOOC website, and that'll be coming out this month. Some to support the tour, and other pieces that are just for book. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, and follow my artists, because Drew Ashby's a part of the book squad. So follow Drew, and yeah, man, we'll go from there.
Cool. Well, Chris, I just want to acknowledge you, man. It's cool to see your journey. You know, I don't know if you could have dreamed of ever, you know, working with people like Nelly, when you first moved out, but you've made it a reality, and you got your own production company, and there's, you're working with the A-list stars, and, they don't, they, those, not saying anything bad about them, but they choose who they work with carefully. So you've
Right.
obviously built a reputation that people trust and people know about, and it's just cool to see, the grind paid off. Making that decision to drop out paid off.
Yeah.
And all that, and congrats on just living a whole life. Getting married, being a
Thank
good
you.
role model for all of us to, settle down and
Yeah.
get
It's
married.
nothing wrong in that, man. See, the music business, like they always used to try to deter people from that. Like, man, yo, you got you're gonna be out here, it's superstar, all these girls, but man, at the same time, man, if you can lock in with somebody and really build something, I'm looking at the Jay and Beyonce type of vibes.
Yeah,
Uh, that's
100%.
really the first role models, Kim and Kanye. You can see what like people can really do in that space. So we just trying to, add to the list.
Yes, sir. The next power couple.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
yes. Chris, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.